being able to record your screen and teach people stuff is frankly just, like firing off a video to a coworker that unlocks something, especially when we're in this kind of age of remote work. It's like a superpower.
Hello, welcome to devtools-fm. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey everyone, we're really excited to have Joel Hooks joining us. So Joel, you are one of the early founders of Egghead, and that's been a pretty inspirational site in our community, great source of education for anything technical. We're excited to talk a lot more about that. But before we dive in and talk about that and some of the other stuff you're working on, would you mind telling our audience a little bit more about yourself?
I personally identify as a software developer, and that's what I enjoy doing. Almost more than anything. I love building and making things and maybe a chronic sort of way. But as it happens, I have spent over a decade building basically the same project over and over again and kind of refining an idea. And that's something I really love too. And it's a space where not only do I feel good about what we build, but it gives me a lot of opportunity to improve and use something new and cycle through the good ideas that are in the space and feed it back into the education piece, because like part of my job is staying abreast of what's, interesting and basically what's good in terms of what's available for developers at any given point in time. And then I'm also super enthusiastic about it. Like I really love technology and I really love like the bleeding edge and what's coming versus, like what I've already done, which, good and bad. Sometimes I have like a trail of bad ideas that I've left in my wake, which can be, expensive and frustrating sometimes. And then also you'll come up with some stuff and have those eureka moments where we get to kind of break through and, go beyond the tools and build something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, I guess.
That theme we see a lot here on the podcast, where a developer gets just kind of obsessed with a problem and rebuilds it over and over again, eventually iterating to like today's golden state. But let's roll it back a little bit to before you started Egghead or started working on it. What was the course education creation space like before Egghead? Like, was it hard to release courses?
I mean, I think releasing a good course has always been hard, and you can take that back as far as you want. Not to speak for the ancient Greeks, but I would suspect that they, had some struggles when they were coming up with a new curriculum or whatever. And then, like when we started doing this, I've been doing this for a long time. So when I first started doing this was 30-ish years ago with like Macromedia authorware and building instructional content. And I was a graphic designer at the time. I wasn't doing the programming side of it, but we were doing like aircraft maintenance production. And it would just, there'd be a lot that would go into that. And as technology has improved, so has the tools around what it takes to put together some sort of string of courses. And obviously that when we were doing that was kind of, it wasn't pre-internet, but it was basically pre-internet, like 1998 or so. And that sort of thing is, that was meant to be like delivered on a CD-ROM, like Macromedia Dreamweaver and those different things that we had back then, where you would deliver instructional content on a CD-ROM. And now, obviously we're doing it on the internet, and that introduces new problems. And I think about at the time when we were building Egghead, there wasn't a lot of optionality. YouTube at the time, I think they were coming up with some, it was still relatively young. They were coming up with ways to monetize it before you could even make any money on YouTube. Like now it's totally different because people can make a living on YouTube, and that's great. I'm still pretty disappointed in like what it takes to put a course online, and like what we've built is a pretty complex apparatus, and the kind of self-serve, non-technical, like people that don't have the ability to build their own entire platform are kind of left with pretty mediocre options, in my opinion. Though they're better than they were for sure 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think like what you're teaching matters a lot. So like in a technical world where you have like code that needs to run or execute or be previewed or something, there are a lot of people will just like do videos. Some people will just do like static web pages, and you get like the more interactive components. What do you think are like the parts that make a good, successful like technical course, especially like in the early days, and sort of like how you think about it now?
We were just having this conversation recently where I think like the production value is something that people put a lot of thought into. I have like an elaborate lights and camera and, you know, I'd say a thoughtful background. It's actually just my office, but the you know, like there's a lot put into that and a lot of emphasis on that. And there's a lot, you know, like where people think about that. But at the end of the day, what people really want is good content that they can learn from and they can take ideas from that they can apply in their actual life. And the production value almost ends up being more for the creator in a lot of ways, like just to like, you know, make us look and sound our best, right? Like we all want to do that and we want to present our best. But like from a learner perspective, there's like a threshold where none of that actually matters if the content is really good. And I'm often frustrated by, you know, how a thing is presented, but I'll still like suffer through it to consume the information because if it's, you know, if it's the only way I can get that information, then I'll go ahead and live through that. And that's like try not to, you know, be a hater on people that are presenting instructional content in certain ways, but like in my heart I hate it that they have to do that they don't have an easy way that to present it in a way that's nicer. And you know, like part of what we do is trying to I like to work, I call it visible source because I don't actually like intend to support people that want to like try to use our stuff, but I like to keep it open so people can take those ideas and run with them and use that as reference because I really like personally love to learn that way. I'm not much of a like sit down and watch a bunch of videos type of person. I'm kind of a hands-on person. So give me some source code and I'm gonna be in there and loving it. So that's one of the reasons we work the way we do is so that people can have some opportunity there to kind of push it forward. And that's actually something we've seen with Egghead is that people have taken those ideas and we have a site howtoegghead.com. And I see those ideas in the developer education space and even beyond. A lot of the stuff that we kind of, I say it's their short screencast for developers that hate watching long, boring videos. And, you know, like that kind of ethos that like, hey, we don't have to ramble on. We can keep it short and present, you know, like get right to the heart of what we're talking about. I love seeing those ideas carried over outside of our space by other instructors.
So Egghead is like an enormous platform now. I just looked it up and you guys have almost 7,000 different courses on there, which is just crazy to start out with. But what led you to Egghead? And then how did you scale it to like this massive amount of videos and like instructors and people?
So John was making videos. John Lindquist was making Angular videos. And at the time, I thought they were great, right? He was making them and they were on YouTube. And I was taking Amy Hoy's 30 by 500 course, which is still fantastic. And I recommend it to anybody that wants to build products and build a business in an ethical, sustainable sort of way. It's still a big influence on me. But John was making these videos and I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of some sort of product, because that was always my goal as a developer I started doing this so that I could figure out some sort of product to build. And I was like, man, I think I can sell these videos. And John, he was very skeptical at first. And I was like, no, really, I can't. Just let me try. And we did. And people, you know, gobbled them up. And then almost immediately I was like, what if we added additional instructors to this and paid them, you know, royalties based on how much that people watched the videos. So we tried that and people, you know, started subscribing. Just kind of one thing led to another. And as it turned out, like the bringing in instructors, that's really a difficult thing to do. Generally speaking, getting other people to do things is really difficult. And it's also really difficult when all you're asking them to do is like work a second job or maybe more for a lot of people. And that's, you know, like that's what we offer. It's like, oh, well, you're really busy. You're really smart. Your work is very intellectually draining. But when you get home, wouldn't you like to sit down and do something that was incredibly hard and uncomfortable and, you know, like record these videos? Because it's not easy. Like if you have ever tried to do screencasting or you know, recording, it's frustrating. You get actual stage fright when you're literally just sitting in your home talking into a microphone and it doesn't make any sense, but your body says otherwise. It's like, my brain is rebelling against me. It's technically difficult. You're doing take after take, and a 2-minute video can take you 3 hours when you first get started. So it's like, how do we get through that process? We've had several hundred instructors at this point. And, like we're very good at that, actually. Like that's something that is a core competency of us as an organization is bringing people in that don't have much experience and trying to remove the friction from their like experience in terms of becoming educators. And it's been fantastic. What the coolest side effect is seeing people that are relatively early in their careers start doing this and just watch the hockey stick of growth in terms of their career, because there might be better ways. I don't know. One of the best ways that I've seen to elevate yourself as a developer and get kind of recognition and kind of skip the line, so to speak, is to get out there and educate and show people the way. And people will see that, and you'll get a bunch of like low effort content out of it. And we're like just absolutely, I guess now we're even more deluged with low effort content now that people can be like, generate me an article. But that isn't it, right? That isn't it. Like people recognize the effort and the actual, communication and fundamentally like the struggle that goes into creating this thing, and it's evident in the result. And that works really, really well. And there's not a lot of ways to shortcut it, but you can make it smoother, and you can, like learn from the basic mistakes of like how to do this and how to do it quality without having to experiment and iterate over time. You can kind of jump to like, hey, let's start making high quality stuff. And, like if you go into if you go into YouTube, one of the, it's kind of fun to go into like popular people, content producers on YouTube and go all the way back to the beginning of their channel and see, the evolution of production value and content quality and all that fun stuff is really kind of interesting. And, that's what we help people do a lot of times, is skip past some of that.
Yeah, it definitely is fun to go back and look at creators' old stuff. Like Marquez Brownlee as like a 14-year-old kid reviewing technology.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see that all over the place. And it's like, it's a practice thing for sure. And then eventually you get to where that 2-minute screencast takes 10 minutes instead of 3 hours. And it's like a practice skill. And like anything, right? Like it is difficult to do and you have to practice, but once you get good at it, now you have something that's really, truly a valuable skill, even beyond like education. Like getting down and being able to record your screen and teach people stuff is, frankly, just, like firing off a video to a coworker that unlocks something, especially when we're in this kind of age of remote work. It's like a superpower.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of journeys, so when you and John had started Egghead, it was like you'd left your job, you were like doing this. It's like, I'm going to try to turn this into a product, and it's been very successful. How was it like in those early days? Is like, so this is a completely bootstrapped company that you sort of built. Is that true? Like, what was that journey like, and how long was it until you like felt pretty comfortable? Like, okay, this is the thing. I'm in my lane. I'm like doing the thing that I want to do.
I don't know if I have reached the like satiation and comfort in my life as far as that goes, but it was pretty quick, actually. I was working as a consultant and kind of flipped over to doing training because it was Angular JS at the time, and it was notoriously difficult to learn with transclusion and all the rest of the new words that people had to learn. But it was also huge in enterprises, so I was doing a lot of on-site training to help that transition. And then our like initial growth was huge. We've since kind of not only plateaued but tapered off on that side of the business, and that's been an interesting journey as well. As like when you like kind of a parabola of revenue growth has been just a challenge to even think about. But that's also because of like splitting efforts and thinking about other problems as well. But yeah, it was it was within 6 months where John and I were both able to kind of focus on Egghead and pursue it full time. And then, like we grew staff, and it was a Rails app at the time. Still is in a lot of respects, mostly the accounting. What I didn't expect actually was that platform perspective, what we're actually building is accounting software, like a CMS also, but like the accounting back end is what it turned out being. And I've had to learn more about that space than I frankly ever would have thought I would have wanted to, or definitely been interested in. It wasn't, my sort of aspirational dream of mine to build accounting software, but that's what you have to do because like we handle the money. That's one of the most difficult aspects of it, is like handling the commerce and handling customer support and doing all that stuff is another huge source of friction to anybody that wants to put it out there and make a little money, and then also like elevate your profile.
Cool. Let's move on a little bit from Egghead. We'd like to stop and thank our sponsor for this week, but we don't have one. So if you'd like to sponsor DevTools-fm, head over to devtools-fm/sponsor to apply. And if you want to find another way to support the podcast, head over to shop.devtools.fm, where you can buy some merch and rep the podcast. With that, though, let's get back to the episode. You've been posting a lot about badass courses recently. You have a whole article on what makes badass content. So where did this like badass manifesto come from, and how is it like materialized into badass courses?
So that's badass.dev is that site. And so the actual company that we use to produce these courses is Skill Recordings Incorporated. And I describe it as a business mullet, where we have skill recordings in the front and the mullet fun bit, the party in the back is badass. And honestly, like I put that up as a place for me to just blog, but the team liked it, and then people just started referring to it as badass courses. And it's 100% an homage to Kathy Sierra's work and her book Badass: Making Users Awesome, which I think everybody should read it in like a literal way, not just in software. It's just a really fantastic book. And that's what the idea is. It's like, how can that entire book is about taking difficult topics and making it to where folks can get past what she refers to as the valley of suck and into like the good parts where you're actually, doing the thing that you want to do, right? And she uses things like photography and snowboarding, which is notoriously difficult. And people will go out there and day one, it's just, like how many times can you land on your face and be like, this is a really horrible activity, I don't like it. But if you can get through that and you can go hit a mountain and snowboard down the mountain, that's like one of the greatest experiences and feelings you can ever have in your entire life. But you have to get there. And the same is true for, programming computers. And it isn't easier now. And we have all sorts of great tools, and like LLMs are awesome. And I'm engrossed in these tools, but I don't feel like it makes the actual job much easier. In a lot of ways, it sometimes makes it more complex. And it's really, really difficult. And people get in there and it is frustrating. And you you give up because it makes you feel like you're dumb a lot of times. And it's not the case. It is just legit hard. And there's a lot of vocabulary, and there's a lot of things to learn, and there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of pieces from, getting here and typing in your editor to like deploying something on a server that other people can interact with. And then just the kaleidoscope of complexity that comes along in there. So to me, like badass is not the content. Badass is where we're trying to help people get to, right? We sometimes we're badass, but that's not the, that is not the intent. This is what we want to help other people achieve, is from where they are now to being a badass at doing what they want to do and achieving what they want to achieve. And to me, that's like at the end of the day, what a badass course would do is, take somebody from, I'm confused and don't understand and I'm frustrated, but I know, where I want to be, and helping them get there. And, like a lot of the material, I think we're relatively successful in that goal, and keep getting better. So, that's great.
It's interesting because this is like a transition from like how Egghead operated as a platform that's like sort of maybe not fully self-service, but like you go to Egghead, you consume a lot of content, and you've sort of changed to like, it's almost this like production company that we will like produce this like, I don't want to say produce the content, but like wrap it up in a way where it's like a standalone, like very high quality thing known for its sort of like own brand. What was the sort of like phase from like thinking about content creation on a platform like Egghead to thinking about like these more, I guess, bespoke, high quality, highly like produced like courses? Like what was the sort of path getting from one to the other?
I was at React Rally and talking to somebody, and they wanted to make courses, and they were like, I don't want to make Egghead money. I want to make Wes Boss money. And I was like, and I don't think you understand what Wes like actually does to do his thing, right? Like that isn't like he just rolls it out there, and comparatively speaking, an Egghead course is much smaller. That's like our whole shtick, is that we make these small things, and it's just the scope of it. It makes it less friction. But I'm like, I mean, people do want to do that. And we have instructors that come out of Egghead and do their own thing. We've, like Josh Como was an Egghead instructor and Tyler McGinnis was an Egghead instructor. And they come out and make really awesome stuff through that process. And they put in the work. And instead of seeing people go and do their own thing and become direct competitors to what we build, like how can we like help facilitate them? What does that mean? And I called it Wes Boss as a service, which Wes thought was funny and I still think is funny. And it was Kent C. Dodds that first was like, I really want to make something and I want to do something, kind of beyond that. And I had this idea and we made testing JavaScript, which was kind of the first out of Egghead thing that we made. And and then we did Epic React, which was just a bonkers bestseller course that, I wish I knew the magic formula that went into that. It was a confluence of factors that produced that particular course. These are bigger things and they're standalone. They're really the same thing. Like at the end of the day, they're very similar. Total TypeScript, Epic Web, testing accessibility, Pro Next.js, just JavaScript. That one's actually different from Dan and Maggie. That one's more it's more book-like, but still fundamentally. And even a lot of those used Egghead as a backend for years. That was a grave technical error on my part to couple all of these things so tightly that I've spent a lot of money, a lot of time and effort over the last few years unwinding that decision. It's much better place now. But yeah, it's when I say, we've been iterating on the same idea, those standalone sites are kind of like mini Eggheads, like an Egghead course that we've taken and put on a domain and given it more, but also tailored to the person that wanted to create it. So they have different aspects because, Egghead is constrained. We don't use like Stack Blitz containers or whatever on Egghead. It's just you're watching videos and that's really what that site is, where Total TypeScript has, it's a problem exercise solution and you can actually work in the browser. And then Canton, the latest Epic React and Epic Web takes it even a step further where it's like, hey, stop, this isn't a browser-based course, clone the repo, open your IDE, and we're working in like a real environment, which I love what he's done. And we've been able to, make the platform flexible to their needs and how they want to teach, which is really important because it's really important to us that one, we like to be a little extra with the design and like push the boundaries of like the presentation, but then also allow that. And we do that so they feel like this is my course. This is my platform. It's not ours. We're very low key. If you go to any of these sites, you're going to have to dig around pretty deep to even discover that I had anything to do with it. I prefer that. And they need to feel, and it needs to be their product, right? Like Kent's product needs to be his, and it needs to present his vision and what he wants to do. Otherwise, he'd just get bored or whatever, or move on. And to keep going and keep doing that for a long time, like content creation is it's a grind. Y'all make a podcast. Even doing this on a regular basis is a grind, and keeping it up it takes a while. And sometimes you don't feel as energetic and enthusiastic as you did. And then how do you get that back? How do you keep that going over the years is always a struggle. So a lot of that has, like, I feel like having that, like the aesthetics and having it, like you guiding the thing and not being like, no, it's an Egghead course, you're going to make it like this, is important to like help people move past that. And then also like kind of keep our business going and keep kind of evolving to the needs of our customers, which frankly are the instructors more so than the, like the end users. We have to keep the end users happy for the instructors, but our customers are the instructors that we work with.
Yeah, the design of all of these courses is always just like mind blowing. You visit one of these pages and it's like candy and you just want to consume it. On your website on Badass Dev, you walk through like the process that you have around creating these courses. Could you walk us through that a little bit?
Sure. So it is the process with a little trademark symbol. No, I actually use the blue spiral emoji in place of a trademark symbol. And I don't think it's super novel. I've seen actually like a lot of variations of this idea of a 4-step process where we start with research. I mean, always, right? We're going to sit down and try to figure out what we're building. We do design, and design in this sense doesn't necessarily mean visual design, though that can be part of it. But like design of the system and design of like what it is the research told us that we want to build, and kind of doing from system design and all the other things that you can think of that that word might mean, into the production phase where we're actually going to sit down and we're going to make the thing that we're talking about. And then finally delivery, and whatever that means. And I say you can break it down into like, you can do this process and the outcome can be a tweet, or a post or a zeet or whatever it is we're having these days. And that's not, a huge artifact, but you now take that piece that you've built, that thing that you've delivered, and it feeds back into the research phase of the next iteration, and then you kind of expand on that. And for us, that might mean that simple post becomes a blog article. That article becomes a screencast video. That screencast video becomes a workshop. That workshop becomes a self-paced course, and you are in this kind of spiral of increasing resolution. And that's definitely an idea from Kathy Sierra's Badass, where like you were spiraling around the same idea in ever increasing higher resolution, to where you have like a seedling up to the forest that you can grow of an idea if you stick with it and go over. If you stop early, your resolution is going to be what it is, but you can always kind of keep going on the same idea. And that concept, or that philosophy, is what's driven a lot of what we do. That idea of the spiral and sticking with an idea and seeing how far you can take it over time is pretty interesting. And it's actually amazing to like have that kind of broad context over time when you're building a thing, versus, here's an idea, try it, throw it away. Like I'm going to build 30 companies in 30 days. Like, you can learn something and that's fine, but like most of the time it's just like, you're not spending enough time with the thing to, like really get to know it. And it's kind of just trying to throw spaghetti against the wall and see if anything sticks, or just some sort of need to keep doing that. Hasn't ever been like my approach. Like I said, I'm a little bit obsessive, and I have an idea and I'm just trying to see where I can take it for as long as I can.
Yeah. When you started off and you're talking about like thinking about this sort of like teaching problem over a long period and how it'd been sort of an obsession for you, I just like in the back of my mind, just thinking about like craft and mastery and like what that means in the software world or the product world, or like, any builder world. It's like, I'll fall into YouTube videos about Japanese joinery, where it's like, craftsmen in Japan just working on making furniture and doing it for years and years and years and years, and just like doing the same basic techniques, but making them so good. And there is something about this like idea. It's being more popularized in like writing. So you have a digital garden as a site, and like a lot of people are like starting to think of that idea now. It's like, oh, we don't have to just like do everything all at once, and that's the only thing. We can like kind of work on this and evolve it over time. So I like this philosophy of the process, and I think there's a lot of like wisdom here, just to give the things the time that they need to develop. I think it's an important and underutilized skill.
Like for me, with the digital gardening idea, like one of the takeaways was, if you write something or you make something, you can come back and just spruce it up. You can come back in there and you can like tear it up a little bit and then rebuild it. Like my digital gardening article, I've been I come into it every few months and just go in there and be like, oh, this has changed, or this is different. And I don't have to be, it isn't like I've pushed publish and now I can't touch that. It is not immutable. I can make changes over time. And like one of the things that makes me frankly super sad is when, like we'll work on a project and we'll release something that's good, and the creator will just move on and basically never even talk about it again. Like they do the launch and they do the release, and then it just kind of floats off into oblivion. And like loses steam, where if we had stuck with the idea, we could have continued and iterated on this and made it into something more and helped more people and got like more ideas out there. And it's like, I hate to see it kind of situation when that happens. Sometimes I'm happy to see them float down the river, frankly, but that's part of the process, right? Like you have something where it's like some blog articles I don't revisit because they were not great ideas. I don't mind that they exist. Sometimes I'll just delete them if they're, like if it's like, oh, that wasn't it. You can have it go away, and that's fine too. Pull the plants out and plant something new and different. Yeah, and that's actually been a very meaningful approach to me, is just this idea that we can, it's not a sort by new. Everything doesn't have to be new. That's really challenging if you're running a subscription service. Is something that I've learned. People aren't as interested in your delightful back catalog and want constant new stuff, which is just kind of the nature of it. And the nature of the internet is absolutely like a sort by new kind of situation.
Definitely. So let's move on to what I've seen you working on all the various social networks lately. It's a thing called Course Builder. There's a repo on GitHub. Not much information around it. It looks like a framework to kind of build courses with, but could you fill us in on the details there?
Yeah, so that's Egghead version 12 or something maybe. We had it. So from Egghead, we did skill recordings. That's the GitHub repo. Products, which is currently Epic React, Total TypeScript, testing JavaScript, and testing accessibility. And then everything we learned from that is kind of pulled into Course Builder. And there's this product that I love called Ingest. And it solves this idea of durable workflows, like event-driven workflows in serverless environments, where I'd like just pounded my face against the wall for you. I have a Kubernetes cluster in my office, trying to solve this problem, and I was trying to deploy temporal. That's why I have K8s in the office, and it was just really hard, and I couldn't do it. And I'm relatively smart and good at this, and I just was frustrated and couldn't do it. And I found Ingest, and it was like a revelatory in its simplicity and ease of use, and just like raw power, and is absolutely like more than, it's like up there with like React for me in terms of just like raw power of potential of what I could build now that I had this in my tool set. So much so that I actually took a job there for a few months last year. And that's where Course Builder came. I was like, oh, I have these ideas, and I want to combine Ingest and make this like video workflows and these platform, these patterns. And I'm going to do that as the demo, and then I can teach people and write articles about it. And I got into it, and I was like, yeah, this is literally all I want to do. And I really don't think that's fair to y'all, because y'all need me to do other things, because they're a very small company and they're very early stage. And I'm like, I want nothing but for them to succeed. And I'm like, I don't think I'm right for this job. I need to just go build this thing. So I quit working there and still have a great relationship with them. They're awesome. And still using the tool, and Course Builder's kind of built around that idea and removing friction from the course, like from the content production pipeline, particularly video, because people default to YouTube because it's relatively easy to get in there. Obviously they have there's a lot of dun, 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 going on when you log into YouTube. But so how can I make it even easier than that? How can I make it more appealing for the people that we work with to like post on their own platform instead of, some ad-walled other person's garden? And like YouTube is fantastic. It's like I think it's a treasure that it exists for humanity, frankly. But like, I'm like, well, we're also trying to build businesses and sell things. And I think there's a lot of value in building your own platform and having, your own space where you can post to. And so it's a little over a year and a half I've been working on that. And now it's actually great. And we're using it as a CMS for our other projects too. Like Egghead is now being driven by Course Builder. And this was funny because I don't know if it's obvious to people, but you can just connect to a database. You don't have to migrate your entire site. Like, we don't have to migrate Egghead to Course Builder. We just put it on a subdomain, and then literally Egghead has a Postgres database. And so instead of migrating the whole site, or using even a Rails API, we just connect to the database and do stuff. I don't know, anybody that needs to hear that, like, you can just connect to the database and do stuff. Like, you can write SQL, and mostly it's fine. It's, like, it adds some complexity to the situation. And I don't know why it took me that. I always literally I'd be like, oh man, I got to write a Rails API. That sucks. I don't want to even mess with that app. I don't want to deploy it. I don't want to have to rethink in Ruby. I'm a retired Ruby developer. I want to keep it that way. Yeah. Just connect to the database. It's fine.
So in Badass Courses, what were you using Ingest for? Like, where'd it go?
Oh, we're using it for email automation. So post-purchase email automation. a lot of webhook handling. So if you think about a scenario like you get a Stripe webhook, then what happens? You end up with the webhook handler that's like just a monster. And instead, it like gets it. We record the event as incoming, and then we fan it out with ingest, and all the different things post purchase happen. Our video processing pipeline is fully controlled by ingest. Like it's like you upload a video and then a bunch of things need to happen, from transcripts to, also please put transcripts on your videos if you are making courses. And there's nothing that makes me more angry is when I see people bragging about how much courses they're selling and they have video and they don't have transcripts or captions for their videos. It's so just table stakes at this point. Deepgram is cheap. You don't even have to pay humans to do it anymore. Anyway, so all of that stuff is automated for us by ingest. I use it literally if I'm sitting down to write a script, because it does this replay thing. And another thing is like you get a Stripe webhook and you're trying to send Slack messages or you're trying to send emails, 424242424242, and you're entering, like you have to enter the details and you like make the full cycle of the purchase. With ingest, it comes in, that event happens, and then because we've divided it all up into nice little serverless event-driven functions, you can pick any part of that and just rerun that one thing, and then like tweak the Slack message, right? Like, cause that's, if you've ever tried to build Slack integrations, it can be kind of frustrating, depending on your loop. And so that, allows us to do that, or formatting HTML emails, another thing that's like a real hassle. With this, you can just push replay and make your changes, push replay, change some data, whatever. That's really nice. Their development server is like, I don't know. It's like the coolest thing I've ever actually maybe interacted with in terms of like a product tool is their development server. I don't know. There probably are. I think I've heard. I haven't seen any. I haven't interacted with any of them. They just put a lot of time and effort into their development server in particular, and it just makes my life way easier. And I keep thinking of new ways that I can use it, or like ways I can migrate stuff that we've done in the past to use it.
I was trying to look up when we had them on. That was episode 101. Yeah.
Did you talk to Tony and Dan?
We had Dan and Tony on. Yeah, it was a great episode.
They're amazing, and I like wake up a lot of mornings and wish that I was still able to like be involved at that level with them, because it's like they built an amazing team, and both of them are just like fantastic human beings. I think so. There's a lot of sociopaths that are CEOs, and it is just wild, like how not that Tony is in particular. Like it's just like Dan is, like he's a friend, but like just Tony and his conscientiousness and desire to build something good that can help people it just blew my mind, frankly. Like I've never directly experienced that in such a way. So it's cool to like have a product that I love that is led by people that I can respect and admire in that way. There's a lot of products that I love that they don't have that, and I'll still use the product, but it's like, it's like I would love to see more of that in the world.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with trying to set up Temporal. It was just like, I felt very stupid not being able to get any of that to run. And just like the night and day difference between ingest is stark. Like
the folks at Render, I think it's render.com, they helped me and were like, oh, we'll fix this. And we just need to make this API. Because I was like, well, I have a next app and it's running on Vercel, and I just want to run the workflow. And they're like, ooh. So they made like you're going to need an API layer, and that's going to need to consume gRPC. And then once you're consuming gRPC, we can, we could translate that, and then we can push that to this other API layer, and then you should be able to do it. And I was like, I don't know. That just doesn't sound good. Like there's none of that I'm going to be able to think about or maintain, and I'm not going to learn to write Go. And, it's like this whole, like I would love to, if I had the time, I would absolutely sit down and learn how to write Go and Zig and Rust and like all the other fun, cool languages that are out there. I just don't. That is one thing I've learned, is you have to focus a little bit if you want to keep making progress. So.
Kind of have to focus a lot.
Yeah, you do.
What is your take on like education and the world of like distraction? So specifically, I'm just really, this is a little bit early to be transitioning to this topic. We usually end the episodes talking about something future facing, but I'm sort of inspired. I've been thinking a lot with great angst about learners coming into the environment, specifically in the software world. The job market for juniors is not great. It is hard to break into this market. The education space has changed significantly with generative AI. people being able to produce things without understanding them, which has always been a thing in some degree or another, right? We've always had tools that giving us more capabilities, but it does feel like things are changing. The delta is a little bit greater now. And I'm curious how you're thinking about like education at this moment in time, course building, or like grabbing people's attention in a different way, or like what it takes to sort of like successfully educate people in this sort of like new world.
So with Egghead, when I made it, I found a tutorial that was build a Rails app that accepts Stripe payments for subscriptions. And I followed that tutorial and I built Egghead in a little under 2 weeks and deployed it and started taking people's money. I didn't understand how it worked. I knew it did work, and it didn't have any tests at the time. I do a lot better at that now. Like the commerce side of it's tested, and I have a better understanding of it now. And I look at that, and there are literally things and decisions that I made in those first 2 weeks, blindly following a tutorial and then naively expanding on that tutorial, that I have to live with and suffer with on a daily basis. And that's a thing. And it's like, I call it the Roomba problem, because like I use Cursor, like I love these tools. Like I am fascinated by them. And, like my deep love of technology is fully just embracing from day one. I love generative art and that sort of thing. Like it's like all around me in my office, actually. Like I've been fascinated with that for a long, long time. So like I love these tools, but you get the, like with Cursor in particular, and I've used it to build all sorts of things. And I've sat down and built whole projects where I'm like, I'm just going to prompt this whole thing and literally do it by voice. So I get Super Whisper and I just sit here and I'm just talk to it and, like Command I to get the composer up and tell it what we're going to build and reject, accept. And these things will just get into the corner and just be like, just like a Roomba, just, like we have a robot vacuum too. And you don't just, it just doesn't clean your house. Like, it's always going to have a cord stuck in its little mouth, or get a shoelace, or, like get stuck in a little spot and be like, help, it's an incline. I can't get out of this. And you get the same thing with these tools, and they keep improving. And I don't know who can predict what point where it'll be like, hey, I need this app, and it's just, and you have it and it's flawless and you don't have to worry about it, and you just kind of walk away and do that thing. I think that's actually great. Like that idea of the democratization and allowing more people access to these tools and making it easier to build software, and being able to be like, hey, I have this spreadsheet, but I'd really like it to be this, or, like my kid's soccer team, needs this app. And I've done that for, like little leagues we've been in the past. And that was cool, but it'd be even better if people could just like pop it up. And we've had, there's no code tools have existed for these kind of things, but like there's a ceiling, especially if you're talking about something like the scope and scale of a thing, like of true complexity, that just gets really hard. And I don't know that we're dealing. And our approach, like to go back and kind of answer the question, is like we embrace these tools, they exist, so we include them in what we're talking about, right? Like you can go to Egghead now and there's Cursor lessons and like Windsurfer versus Cursor, and like we're evaluating the tools and talking about it, like what's good and what should developers be thinking about. You absolutely should be thinking about these tools if you're writing software. If you're not, then it's like the Japanese craftsmen making those fine dovetails with their mechanical tools. That's cool, but also, like I don't know what the world will have for that sort of bespoke level craftsmanship and software in particular in the future. So like where it's a automated job, and the people that are building these tools and the money that's going into these tools absolutely want to like remove more software, like high paying software jobs from the equation. Like that has to be, that's a big motivation, because developers are super expensive because it's hard and takes a long time to get in there. I don't think the market for juniors has ever been good. Has it?
I'm not sure.
People say that and they're like, oh, now the market for junior developers, and like, I don't think it's ever been good because it's such a hard job. And like the tipping point from I want to learn how to code to like I'm a productive software developer is like it's a big valley to leap. And I was trying to think if I've ever been like, wow, this is really the heyday for junior developers. Maybe there was one that I'm not aware of. I'd be interested to hear more, I guess. I don't personally think that has happened.
Yeah, I think it is harder today than when I started. Like when I got out of college, it was like kind of almost the gold rush of like there's just jobs everywhere. My sister-in-law right now like graduated a year ago, hasn't had like any luck. My sister, she hasn't had too much luck either. She kind of had to like juice some connections to get like a sort of tech job. But yeah, it's been hard for them for sure.
Yeah, it might be more of a saturation thing too, because when you're talking about these,
True.
like high paying jobs where you get to work at home and, make just bonkers money, right?
Yeah.
Like for what it is. And then you get the top of the funnel becomes very, very heavy and saturated. And another problem that I think that people are going to have is related to the generative tools, but it's a little bit different. And Kent actually wrote a really great article, AI is coming for your job, but it's not what you think, is because like hiring is really, really difficult now, because it's like this just deluge of generated resumes and cover letters and just like applicants that are putting in 3, 4, 5,000 applications a day, like literally scouring the internet, scraping and just peppering everything. And how do you even deal with that on the other side? It's like our inboxes are already, it's already a nightmare. And now you have that, and that's affecting everybody's inbox. We're all getting the generated content pushed. But from a hiring perspective, it's a not great situation for anybody that's like trying to go traditionally. His idea and not really a solution, but just a way to kind of mitigate some of that is like in-person events at the end of the day. It's like conferences, and I went to Danny Thompson's Commit Your Code last week, which is had that kind of early career vibes. Danny's really big in that space and really gives amazing advice to people trying to break in. It's like at that event, I just saw it in action, right? Like you're able to meet people that are earlier, and he's like, make yourself human in this sea of non-humanity. Like being, a person that people can relate to is a huge lever too. It's hard though. I'm really happy I don't have to try to do that again. It was actually fairly easy for me. It wasn't easy, it was hard, but it sounds like it was easier than that. Like I didn't have to like jump through a bunch of hoops and got lucky when I did this 15 years ago. So like what worked for me, like I don't give a lot of career advice, because what worked for me is absolutely not the same as what's going to work for somebody today.
Yeah, I very much feel that. When I was early in my career and in that kind of like golden era, I gave out lots of advice of like, this is a great field to go into. The jobs are cushy. And then like, just from there, it just kept going down and down. And it was much harder to recommend any career advice to anybody. I'll give it if somebody asks, but I will not put it on someone.
Yeah, I'm not get your first job in tech is definitely not something I want to write.
No.
I think what you said is actually still true though. I think it's a great job, and it's wonderful. And if you love puzzles and actually love the technology, I think that there's a lot of room. I think there's a lot of different reasons that people could get in this and still be successful. Mm-hmm. And I'm just excited to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. Like that's my entire goal, is to keep on trucking and keep kind of spiraling around this problem for as long as I can, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up, we always like to ask a future-facing question. I asked one, but I just want to ask you what you think the future of developer education looks like.
So when I see like Andrej Karpathy, who's like the father of OpenAI's LLM ChatGPT, like he's building, his new thing is an education startup, and it's going to be really interesting to see what that looks like and what they do. And I've seen Amelia Wattenberger's working on a project that's like generate a lesson for any sort of tech you can think of, and it'll be like an interactive exercises. And I'm really curious to see how that helps or hinders folks that are trying to learn. I don't know if it will, I have no idea from like a predictive standpoint what the end result will that be great, or will it be a dead end? I'm really interested in that. I think at the end of the day, there's always going to be that kind of demand for that, like something that's more direct and more boutique and more humanized than the generative stuff can bring us. So I don't think colleges are going anywhere. I don't think, like in-person workshops and learning directly from somebody with a lot of deep experience and context is going anywhere. And definitely think we have at least a few more years before the robots take all the teacher jobs. I think that would be bleak, to be honest, is the word I might describe that with. So I don't know. I'm not much of predicting the future in general. I'm kind of like a a roll with the punches kind of person in my lifestyle choices. So it's going to be interesting times. That I have no doubt. It always is. And, there's a lot of cool stuff coming, and, I think the curious will keep being able to keep themselves interested for some time. Hope so anyway.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up for our questions this week. Thanks for coming on, Joel. You've done a lot of work in the education space, and it's all so refined. So thank you for doing it, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Love chatting with you guys.
Yeah, we're big fans of your work. Content creation is hard, and we have massive respect for all the work that you've done, and the quality and the polish, and frankly, the philosophy around how to approach problems like this. I think we just don't see enough real refined philosophy on tackling what are hard problems, building a productive education course. So yeah, thanks for all the work, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, y'all.